legitimate Stanley Cup contenders have that guy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, look at all the guys look at all the teams that have won the Cup in the
well, what about
past
Pittsburgh?
decade.
The last
Chris
two
Letang.
times, no. Is he? Is he? I mean, I'd have to look at it, and I'm sure he was leading them in points from the blue line, but I find it difficult to task him in the same level as a PK Subban and a Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. I feel like he's one step down. And Gordon Brown Berry brings up a good point in the chat. He says, I think you either need a franchise defenseman or a six-man deep blue line. I feel like that's the way you win cups. And again, you'd have to look at, most cup champions probably have a franchise defenseman. You look at the Blackhawks when they won, and it was Duncan Keith. You look at the Kings when they won, it was Drew Doughty. I guess you can argue with the Penguins that it was Chris Letang. I feel like that is an argument you can have, that he is considered a franchise defenseman. But most teams do. But I think you can at least go far. Maybe not win it without a franchise defenseman, but I feel like you can go farther enough with at least having six men capable of playing consistent minutes in the National Hockey League, and the Ducks don't have that. And that's something they're going to have to look through. And even Derek brings up, he says, our third pairing needs to be real deep for a good postseason run. And I believe that. You can't expect the Ducks to go far. And yes, they had a lot of other issues, but with the third pairing they presented in that first round series, there's not much you can expect for that, especially with Cam Fowler out.
So Anaheim Ducks 2007, Scott Niedermayer, Chris Pronger. Detroit Red Wings, we all know about Nicholas Lidstrom. Yeah. 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins, looking at Chris Letang. Blackhawks 2010, Duncan Keith. Boston Bruins 2011, Zdeno Chara. 2012, Doughty. 2013, Keith. 2014, Doughty. 2015, Keith. F those two teams. And then Pittsburgh, obviously, back-to-back. They also had Malkin and Crosby, which is just...
Exactly.
Everyone says Taves, Kane, but give me a break. Malkin and Crosby are just another level. That's another level. And they both play really good two-way games, I feel like. So that also helps out on the defensive side of things. And I know that Schultz played really well for them, right? When they were without Letang, when Letang had all those crazy injuries. So, yes, you either have to have an insanely good defensive team altogether, I feel like, or you need a legitimate franchise defenseman. And those don't just grow on trees. You got to be pretty damn lucky. The next one coming up is Dahlin, who's definitely not coming to Anaheim unless there's some sort of miracle. But that's totally not going to happen unless some idiot trades for him.
Everybody passes on him until the 23rd pick.
Of course. So, yeah, that's kind of where we sit. They need to figure out their third pair. Obviously, it needs to be fast. Going young obviously didn't help as much as we thought because they got eaten alive. Yeah. They got eaten alive just as bad as a Boschem and Bieksa pairing. They need something that's going to work. So the Ducks aren't going to get a franchise guy, and so they need to figure that out. Now let's talk about Brandon Montour. Mm-hmm. Just the little last piece on the defensive side of things. He's about to get an RFA contract. He's perhaps the biggest surprise of the season for me, right? I don't want to jump ahead, spoiler alert, to our surprises, but, come on. It's hard not to talk about this guy. We were kind of iffy on where he stood on this team until all of a sudden he got paired with Cam Fowler.
Yeah, because it was I guess you could call it a mediocre season up until that point because he was paired with Francois Beauchemin, and I remember doing shows where I was like, we just want that little bit more from Brandon Montour, and you saw that from people. We were expecting so much from him after the playoff run, and end up giving up Shea Theodore, and now all the pressure's on him to be that young guy who's going to step in and make a difference. And for I guess the first half of the season, he really couldn't do that because he was paired with Francois Beauchemin, and things just weren't going well for that pairing all year. And then all of a sudden, maybe not right off the bat, but when they finally got put together consistently, him and Cam Fowler just took off. And I don't think I would have ever said this at the beginning of the season, but they became the Ducks' best pairing. They were better consistently than Lindholm and Manson, which I didn't expect. And, that is a go-to pairing for the Ducks next year. And Montour is going to have to be just as good, if not better. But those guys are going to have to stay healthy. It's such an easy thing to look at and say, yeah, they're going to be great if they can be healthy. And you never know what kind of injuries are going to strike you. Of course, the Ducks got very unlucky with injuries this year. But again, you don't have that cover. Maybe Pettersson and Larson can step up and play with Montour for a little bit of time. But, that's the question, I guess, for every team. And you can pretty much say that for anybody. If Karlsson gets injured in Ottawa, what's their season going to look like? It's probably going to be bleak anyway, but and you can say that with any top defenseman. So I'm interested to see what Montour can do, because I was surprised, like you said, when he got put with them. I want to see what they can do with at least close to a full season together, and we can really get a better idea of how good this pairing is, because we know Lindholm and Manson are going to always be consistently good. I'd like to see more of Fowler and Montour together before I can get a full opinion on what type of pairing I think they are. But it's looked good so far.
If you had to give the defense a grade before we hop over to goaltending, what would you give them? Regular season. We can't really crush them in the playoffs, but regular season.
If you're taking everything into account, the amount they played Boschman, Bieksa at the beginning part of the season, where they played them on separate lines and they split up Fowler and Montour, and then you have to, it's almost like I give them two separate grades. If I was going to give them a grade for the first half of the season, yes, I know there were injuries, I'd probably give them about a C+, just because they didn't look that great, and you only had one pairing that was consistently good, and that was Lindholm and Manson. But then in the second half of the season, I'd have to go up to about a B+, just because you had those two top pairings, which were great. And the third one was just a mess at times, but at least you could roll with Lindholm, Manson, Fowler, and Montour for most of the game, and the Ducks were able to win games because of that. So I wouldn't go into an A, because obviously that bottom pairing was still bad, but I feel like the grade definitely bumps up at the second half of the season when they got put together.
Yeah, I would have to go overall with a B. I think they were pretty solid for the regular season. Postseason, a little messy around all the defensive pairs. None of them were perfect or amazing, hence where we are. Obviously, the other holes to fill, but, I mean, just looking at the regular season, I got to give that group a B. It'll be interesting to see how they handle a coaching style change coming into the defensive side of things. We'll see who that is this summer. But let's hop over to goaltending. This should be pretty quick. Just because, I mean, this is the position that is, I mean, almost uncritiquable. There's nothing you can say, in my mind, about John Gibson or Ryan Miller that's going to be negative. They had tremendous years. Ryan Miller did his job more so than I thought that he was going to provide this season. He made an incredible, he made an incredible attempt to keep the Ducks afloat, and I think he succeeded. Finishing with a 2.35 goals against average and a .928 save percentage with 4 shutouts. Not much more you can ask a backup goaltender to do. And then John Gibson, 31 wins. He hits 2.43 goals against average and .926 save percentage and also 4 shutouts. Yeah, they didn't get what they wanted in the playoffs. But that was a team. That's the same thing I could be said about the defense. That was a whole team issue, including coaching staff, including general manager. That needs to be accounted for. But looking at these guys for the regular season, it doesn't get much better than this.
No, it doesn't. I mean, like you said, John Gibson had a Vezina season, or should have been a Vezina season, and a lot of people, it's not just us either. I mean, yeah, I think we're being a little bit of homers, because I think we really wanted him to be in there, but we had Paul Campbell on the show who believed he should have been up for a Vezina, him, Rinne, and Bobrovsky. But he believed, I think he ended up nailing it on the head, didn't he? I think he picked Rinne, Hellebuck, and Vasilevsky as the guys that will probably get the top 3 finalists, and he ended up picking it up. But a lot of people, especially in the analytics community, believe John Gibson maybe should have not just been nominated, but should have won it. I saw a lot of people, which I was surprised. I mean, I knew people wanted him to be put in the conversation and at least be one of the finalists, but I saw some people that actually believed he could win it. I mean, that's insane, and that tells you the type of season he had. And again, that you got to look at Ryan Miller as well. He was one of the best backups this year. You could say maybe the best if you didn't have a guy like Carter Hutton out in St. Louis who was putting up some insane numbers. But he came in when he had to, and he was great for the Ducks. This was the only position, like you said, that doesn't need any upgrades for next season. You've got both of them here. John Gibson, you would hope, could come in and have a similar season, maybe stay a little bit healthier. And again, he wasn't out any extended period of time, but he was out at least, I think, 2 or 3 times with different injuries here and there. It'd be nice to see him just consistently stay in the lineup without getting hurt multiple times throughout the season. So again, this was, I think you got to give this an A+ if you're going to rank it. I mean, you can't give anything less than that, because I think we all believe John Gibson should have at least been a finalist for the Vezina, and then Ryan Miller coming up and playing as well as he did. Can't really give it anything less than that.
No, I'd have to agree with you, man. I mean, there's not much more you can say about those guys. I feel like they've just been amazing. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, what do you do other than hope that they can just replicate this season and then everyone's healthy? So, yeah, hey, and I just saw Gordon Bombay in the chat. He said, is everyone else feed skipping a bit? I'm getting the same sort of feedback, not to break up the show here, but yeah, there's sort of like a skip.
We'll keep going, and I'll work on that a bit and see what's going on here.
All right, let's get over to the offense here. Talking about Ryan Getzlaf and Rickard Rakell, they are just money in the bank. I have no problems with them moving on to next season. We obviously need to look beyond them to find issues, which is what we're doing the show for. I mean, but Rickard Rakell having another amazing season, just improving and improving, season after season, getting better. Obviously, being paired with Ryan Getzlaf has just been just a revelation for his career, honestly, because you know that Ryan Getzlaf has a lot to do with Rakell's success. And yeah, of course, Getzlaf's game is eventually going to slow down, but he plays that type of game where, I mean, his hands, anytime you have hands like that and you can move the puck that way, the puck is always going to beat out skating. So, I mean, you're going to look forward to this type of style of game from Ryan Getzlaf for a long time. I feel like he's not going to just fall off the way Corey Perry has, because, obviously Getzlaf's more the assist guy anyway. He barely cracks double digits in goals after, every season. But Rickard Rakell and Ryan Getzlaf have been money. I mean, they need to add more to help them out, because when they dry up a little bit here and there, like everyone does, there's just a need. And we had those guys for stretches where that was the case, and you needed the slack to be picked up, and then come playoff time, it was just kind of done. But in the regular season, we even felt that with the Henrique line being on fire at some times, with Kasha and Richie, and then it falls off. And then Perry's line coming up a little bit when he wasn't playing with Getzlaf. It just kind of wasn't consistent enough. So, I mean, after Ryan Getzlaf and Rickard Rakell, who would you think, Eddie, we should be looking at here on this Ducks lineup to have a sort of resurgence next season?
You would hope it'd be a guy like Nick Ritchie, who had such a disappointing season this year, would be a guy that would rebound and play a lot better. But as for guys to lead the way, other than Getzlaf and Rakell, I've always hoped that Silfverberg could get to that point where he's going to be a 25, 30 goal scorer, and it's getting so far along in his development that he's going to be a 20 goal scorer for sure, but I don't know if he's going to really jump up and get to that next level. I think that Henrique and Kasha line, especially, and whoever ends up getting paired on that left wing with them, if it's Nick Ritchie or somebody else, I think they have to be consistently good next season if the Ducks offense is going to have any kind of resurgence, because, like you said, they were on fire at times, and then at times they completely disappeared, and they disappeared in that entire series against the Sharks, and we didn't see them at all. So I'm not sure what it is. I feel like this is a line that can definitely get things done. We're all hoping that Andre Kasha can be a guy that can get 20 goals again next year and maybe hit about 45, 50 points. And imagine if that line can be consistently good all year. That's going to be a threat for the Ducks. I mean, they're going to need Getzlaf and Rakell, and possibly Patrick Eves is a guy who's going to be on that first line with them. And then you've got the second line, and then maybe you have Andre Kasha, Adam Henrique, and Corey Perry. Could be a possible third line that we see, and maybe that helps rebound Corey Perry if that line can be consistently good. So there's things to look forward to, but I don't know where things are going to change. I mean, we've heard Murray talk about how he wants to add speed, how this team needs to play faster, but I'm not sure where that's going to come from when we can pretty much expect the same top nine with the addition of Patrick Eves at the start of next year.
Yeah, and Andre Kasha, 20 goals, 18 assists, 38 points in 66 games. I think we can only expect improvement on him going into next season, unless he has just a ridiculous sophomore slump. But you also need to see what happens with his RFA contract. Hitting 20 goals is a big milestone for a guy, and I think the expectation was not there for him to hit that. But the fact that he did means he's going to be getting, I think a generous pay raise coming out of Bob Murray's pockets, and I think that's going to have an effect around the team, because not only does Brandon Montour need that and Andre Kasha, but then looking at Nick Ritchie, as you mentioned, with 10 goals and 17 assists, I kind of feel like he's the guy to look at, and I know we've talked about it before, but is he the guy that's going to get the 1-year deal, the 2-year deal, Ritchie I'm talking about here, to prove himself, or is there going to be a movement from him? Who knows? But, Nick Ritchie has just been a big disappointment, but he's kind of young, Eddie. I know I've been harsh on him, But do you feel like he's going to get that chance, or do you really feel like this might be the time for them to get faster and get another player to slot in there?
I think it is because